Have you ever had those French winemakers that don't wear deodorant? You ever interview those?
It's recorded.
Yeah, I don't care. You get really close, and it's like this warm blanket comes over you, like, oh god.
There are some Ontario winemakers that
They do that
are
too.
very, very similar.
Oh jeez. And how do you, and he gets closer to you because he gets excited, right? And you want to just back away, like, come on, buddy. Ever heard of Lifebuoy?
So I'm sitting here with none other than master winemaker Howard Soon from Sandhill in BC. How are you today, sir?
Great, Jamie.
And what brings you to Toronto?
Well, we're sitting in the middle of Vertical Restaurant in the heart of downtown Toronto, I think, which I haven't been here for years. Quite exciting for me to be here. Different culture than British Columbia and Okanagan and all that, but not a bad thing, just different. It's a bit like a foreign country to me, I think. So I'm very careful when I make my moves, and speak to people in the elevator or don't, that kind of stuff.
So tell me a little bit about yourself. I know a little bit about your history, but please, if you wouldn't mind speaking to the camera here and telling our listeners a little bit, and viewers, telling them a little bit about yourself.
Well, as I was growing up, I loved science, so I'm a scientist from the get-go. I always wanted to have a little lab at home.
You were a microbiologist?
Biochem.
Biochem, okay.
So chemistry, and when I first got my first chemistry set, that kind of stuff, which most geeks go through. But then I went to university to study biochemistry because I liked the idea of studying life and also chemistry behind it. And took that and graduated and worked for Labatt's for 5.5 years, learning how to make beer. Because beer sounds...
Fermentation science.
Yeah, well, it sounds like a good gig, get your beer for free.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did that for 5.5 years.
Well, it depends. I wouldn't take Labatt's for free for that.
Well, in those days, any kind of beer, a university student, you'll drink anything. So then after that, I was posted in Winnipeg and got tired of the long winters, and there was no way I could get back to British Columbia, where I'm from. So I interviewed in Okanagan, and they hired me a couple of weeks later to run their laboratory at Kelowna Wines, which has been around since 1932.
Yes.
So I started in 1980, saw the pre-VQA era, so for about 8 or 9 years. Then we had free trade come, and of course free trade, when it came in, all the grapes were ripped out, and I thought, oh geez, we're not going to have a job.
Now, so it was... Vitis vinifera was first planted in about 91 or something like that?
No, much earlier than that.
Much
only
earlier.
Experimental, guys.
I see.
One of our oldest vinifera plantings is 61 in Inkami Vineyard, which we were once partners in.
Right.
And Color.
So you were making wine pre-vinifera?
Pre-vinifera. French hybrids, a lot of them. And Labrusca is still coming in.
Oh.
I still remember the taste of them. You know what? They made decent wine, but not like, it'll never knock you out. Those wines, French hybrids or vinifera, Labruscas, don't have that depth. They're maybe tasty up front, but there's nothing there. Mm-hmm. Depth, finesse, all these wonderful little things we talk about, like minerality, like on your shirt, they don't have those. So long term, to make fine wines, vinifera is it. It's the only way to go. And thank goodness, we've got global warming now, gives them a better chance of growing vinifera. But it's a fairly new idea.
Now, there's not that much of a problem ripening vinifera varietals in the Okanagan, is there?
No. People think it's more dependable vintages, but I say every year's been a different one.
Right.
Not predictable. And that's kind of a good thing, because then human beings like winemakers can actually make the wine, and it's not a computer with a recipe plugged in. So we can respond to the conditions.
That brings me to one of the questions I had for you. I have a friend who shall remain nameless, who a couple of years ago had spent some time in BC and came back, and we were sitting down over a couple of pints of beer, and he said, he's a scientist as well, actually, but he said to me very matter-of-factly, Okanagan wines are much better than the one from Lake Niagara. No, there wasn't any question. It wasn't like, do you think they are? It was, they are. And I was trying to explain to him how different they were. And he tends to really enjoy bigger Californian styles or Australian styles.
So he's right on board with that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, how many in the vineyard sites that you're sourcing fruit from? What kind of heat units are we talking about? What kind of?
In degree days, they talk like it's almost 1,500.
Okay.
So that's still region 1 to 2, somewhere in there.
Right.
So pushing it with Bordeaux variety sometimes, and Cab Sauv is usually our last one to pick. We have snow coming in when we're picking it.
Really?
Yeah, my friend Bill Dyer, who started up the Bernal Vineyard, as the winemaker, he's no longer there, but when we started talking about 1997, the first crush, we look up, there's snow coming on the cabs, and he told me, I was thinking maybe not bothering to consult here, because I thought, we're beaten, can't possibly do a good job.
No.
But he's intrigued by Okanagan, he's still sticking with it.
But you don't usually have too much of a problem ripening that cab, do you?
No, it's usually ripe by the time we're ready to pick it and the snow is starting. Hopefully.
Right.
We don't trigger our picking by snow, but that has happened in the past. We've had grapes freeze on the vine when we pick them, have to make wine. And sometimes the flavors aren't quite the same. But
No.
we don't want that. We don't want that for sure, Jake.
Now, you're currently with Sandhill. When did you come on board with Sandhill?
We started up as one of our brands, our premium brand, in 1997. At the same time, we did our partnership with Burring Owl Vineyard, so we're linked together. And in fact, our Sandhill Vineyard is part of the Burring Owl Vineyard at one time, which is why sometimes in the old days, Sandhill Vineyard, our wine said Burring Owl Vineyard at the
I can
bottom,
remember
because
seeing
that's
that
where the land is.
and being
That's
very
the great stuff.
confused.
Yes, and we didn't do it on purpose. We did it because I said, that's honest. That's the name of the vineyard, and it's famous. Every time we sell a bottle of Sandhill that says Burring Owl Vineyard, which is where the grapes are grown, under contract for us, they should be happy.
Because Burring Owl had quite a cult following.
They do.
I can remember seeing Sandhill and wondering if the
Is this the same thing? Is
Yes,
it
no,
an imitation, or are they stealing it?
I assumed it was being stolen, but
Yeah.
no.
Yeah. No, and then we finally got up to stand up on our own 2 feet and say, no, we're going to be Sandhill Vineyard, Sandhill Estate, and we started promoting it that way. And I think everybody's happy about that.
Now, Sandhill has gone from strength to strength,
Yes.
particularly, I would say, over the last 4 or 5 years,
Yeah.
thereabouts.
Sure.
Tell me a little bit about some of the accolades that have come
Oh,
your way.
geez. I'm very pleased to tell you about that. Let me think. Well, even in 2000, my friend Dick Cleve grew Syrah at the Phantom Creek Vineyard. We started with a vintage in 2000 with Syrah, and it was tremendous. It was only one. It came down to 1 barrel, so we couldn't do anything with that. But then 2 years later, in 2003, we made a nice quantity of it. I can't remember, it was like 75 cases. And it was tied for the best red wine in Canada at the Canadian Wine Awards. So we said, oh man, there's potential here. Well then, in subsequent years, the 2003 vintage was named Red Wine of the Year by itself. And now we have the 2007 vintage, also Syrah, from Dick Cleve, winning Best Red Wine in Canada. Again, tied though with Casaba, which is from Ontario. But still, he's up there. And, we were part of that, being from Sandhill. And I said to Dick once, I said, Dick, why did you pick me? I mean, you ran the Black Sage Vineyard for Sumac Ridge. Why did you ask me to make the wine for you? Because I didn't get it. I didn't think I was very skilled, at all. And he says, well, Howard, you're the best winemaker I know. That's what he said. And I was surprised, because I wasn't looking for that. So he trusted me with his fruit. And so I'm glad that we were rewarded by, winning those awards for him.
That's
so that's a
fantastic.
big story.
And you were rated as Winery of the Year as well, as I can see by your lovely sweater that you have
So
on
that means, and I'm not a boaster, but I'm pleased that we're number 1. Last year we were number 5. That's been the best on the strength of the awards. Well, all the beautiful tastes and flavors and results all come from great grapes. So Richard Cleve's partner is Robert Goltz. Robert has his own vineyard called Osprey Ridge. Robert grew Viognier, and I got to work with Viognier for the last 3 or 4 years. And I said, Robert, this Viognier is tremendous. We have another set of awards called the Lieutenant Governor's Awards in British Columbia. They name only top 10 wines that they've tasted blind for the best. They just say these are the best wines. Doesn't matter if it's Viognier, Chardonnay, whatever. Well, his Viognier won year before last for the top 10 wines in BC. I said, Robert, this is tremendous stuff, this Viognier. And then this year, of course, it won White Wine of the Year.
And this is
Best
under the
white wine.
Sandhill label. This is from his fruit.
Sandhill under his label, and I said, and here's what's great about it, Jake. I don't know if you read it in the Wine Access magazine yet. The comment from the judges. Usually, wine tasting comments are clinical. It's this, and this. This one started out. I could hardly stay in my seat when I smelled this beautiful aroma of this Viognier. I mean, you hear a person.
High praise indeed.
Yeah, you hear a judge commit himself like that. I mean, holy smokes! And the more I taste that, I think, well, isn't that wonderful? I mean, we haven't got any left, but it was 514 cases. And everybody who ever bought a bottle of that, I'm sure, was very happy with it.
Now, today we've been focusing upon tasting the small lot project.
That's right.
Tell me a little bit about that.
Sure. Small lots to us means usually under 500 cases. Usually it's anywhere from 200 to 300. Our largest quantity is Sangiovese at 644, and you tried that one, right? Good.
Oh yes.
Good
Oh,
Sangiovese. It's probably the best Sangiovese we've ever made, and it's one of the largest quantities we've ever made. So I was very pleased that it could do both. Because sometimes people think, well, the bigger it is, the lower the quality. And so small lots is about small batches, and it starts with a winemaking initiative. Said we want to always be progressive. We always make new varieties, do new techniques, try new barrels, new parts of the vineyard. Single blocks we do now. All those kinds. We want to be progressive. We never want to sit still. I'm a Gemini, so maybe that bored
Okay.
easily. They say So I think that's part of it. And they said, well, Howard, this Sangiovese I've been working with this for 3 years, you guys. They said, well, it's pretty good, Howard. They said, why don't you bring this? What have you been doing with that? I said, well, I just make it and then taste it and we blend it off because nobody wants it. The marketing guy said, hey, you know what? There's something here. And they said, we'll start with the Sangiovese and Those are actually one of our first small lots with the Sangiovese and Barbera because it's so different and it's got a great story to tell. So they started out and they said, Howard, what are we going to call this? how do we call this special little tier that's, it's premium and special and something you've worked on? I said, to be authentic, we must call it small lots.
Yeah,
That's the term in all wine businesses. Mostly, go to New Zealand, they're going to say, what do you call these little batches of wine? Small lots. That's the term.
Now, how many of these small lots do you make? How many different varietals fall into that?
12 different bottlings. And some are blends,
Right.
which are very intriguing. We have number 1, 2, and 3, and then we do a Cabernet Sauvignon Syrah as well. So for us, blending has to be because it's necessary or because it's a better wine.
Yes,
so
yes,
in
of
the
course.
Bordeaux tradition, we all know Bordeaux is important to be blended. Petit Verdot we bottle a little bit by itself, but the main reason for having Petit Verdot and Malbec is to be part of the blend called number 1. And Cab Sauv by itself, it needs that.
Yes.
I say to people, Cab Sauv is like a frame. It's like a coat hanger that you hang your good clothes on. So to pretty it up, there's Petit Verdot and Malbec. But Cab Sauv is a framework that makes the wine so great and delicious.
Now, how many wines do you make at Sandhill?
At Sandhill alone? I would guess we're up to 20. 20, I'd say, and that's our most premium stuff. And the great thing to fall back on, Jamie, is let's say this wine's not proving out too great, we can just blend it down to our lower tier.
And
something that's not Sandhill.
Now, we don't, until recently, we've not really seen that much good wine from BC within Ontario. It's simply to do with the interprovincial laws and the like.
It's a bit of that.
Now, do you see much wine from Niagara in BC?
A little bit, not a lot. And I say to people, it's because BC people don't know Ontario wines, they don't know Niagara. I think it will come because our parent company is from Grimsby.
Yes.
From Niagara. I can see that coming someday. But initially, our initiation is actually bring Okanagan wine, Sandhill, to Ontario, and this is the historic because this will be our seeding, you might say. So next year we'll have more wine to bring back to you and talk to you about more interesting stuff. I hope. Again, because we want to be progressive.
Well, this was a fascinating tasting today and a really
Good.
great opportunity for us to taste the wines in Sandhill. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon and for Good Food Media, Good Food Revolution. Thank you very much, Howard Sim.
Thank you, Jamie.